is a time of profound change and growth. There are newer challenges and pressures every single day. Mental health is crucial during these formative years. After all, your state of mind influences how one can cope with stress, make decisions, and form healthy relationships. Hi, I'm Tej and I host Chezuba Talks, and today's topic is teen mental health. My guest today is Elliot Callan. Elliot was the CEO of two companies, has been a motivational speaker, and he leverages over 30 expertise in his financial planning and advising practice. A Brighter Day, the 501c3 charity which unites stress and depression resources with teenagers, is inspired by his son Jake's 2015 suicide, and A Brighter Day has saved many a teenager's life in the years to come. Welcome to the podcast, Elliot.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me on, Tej.
Elliot, first, sorry to hear about Jake. Is it okay if you share a little bit about Jake?
Absolutely, I'd love to. He was a wonderful kid, bright, very active in sports. What we didn't know is that he was suffering from depression. And so in January of 2015, he, as a sophomore at the University of Montana, walked up to the highway, no drugs, no alcohol, and jumped in front of an oncoming truck and took his life.
So sad, really terrible. So now you are ensuring that teenagers have access to resources to understand this situation, right? I mean, did you feel that Jake did not show signs of him being depressed?
Well, looking back on it, you can see all these little things that we never put together. I think I'm like most parents that we just, assume our kids going through goofy phases or whatever. It's kind of sad, but he really wasn't depressed in the sense that his grades were okay, his friendships were okay. He was captain of his hockey team at college. There were a lot of really good things happening in his life on the surface, but underneath it, he was a boiling pot of depression. But he didn't share that. He didn't share that with his friends. They talked to me afterwards. And that was the motivation, Tej, for starting the charity, because we knew that there must be tens of thousands of parents like me that don't know what's going on with their children when it comes to stress and depression. We just didn't see it. Maybe we didn't grow up with it. Maybe we don't understand it ourselves. It's easy to see when your child's hooked on drugs and then you have a cause and you might have an effect. But with depression, it's a lot harder to see. So the motivation for A Brighter Day was to create resources for teens and their families on stress and depression, and with the goal of stopping suicide. And we're 8 years into this charity. We're now touching 5 to 10,000 families every single month with our resources.
And when you say resources, what kind of resources are these?
Great for online globally. Resources are the website is very robust with articles, with a teen survival toolkit, with a parent survival toolkit, and many other sources, mostly teaching parents how to communicate better with their teens. Then in North America, we've got 24-hour texting for children that teens anywhere, anytime, on holidays can text and get help. When that doesn't work, we've got live counseling, because in the United States, counseling takes, if you find your child, Tej, is hurting themselves, you're going to want to get them immediate help. But in the States, for the most part, that could take 8 to 10 weeks. And that's a lifetime. That's a lifetime.
Yeah,
And so we
that's
created a
really
program that works in all 50 states in the United States, where a teenager can get counseling inside of 7 days. And it works everywhere.
that's
So
great.
we're really being active on that. We also added college scholarships to the program, and on a monthly meeting for parents just to learn about facts on how to deal with their children.
So when you say you collaborate with people and organizations, so obviously therapists are on call. And what other partnerships do you have with organizations?
Well, the most part, teens react and parents react two different ways other than reading. Teenage parents might like to read. I'm a reader. I like to read about it. There's so many resources on the website at abrighterday.info. So many great resources available, thousands, literally thousands of pages of resources available to them. But for some people, especially teens, they don't read. They text. And that's probably our most successful program is our texting program. So it's very popular in the U.S. The teens just they live on their thumbs. I mean, I can't even move my thumbs as fast as these teens can. I can't move two as
True,
fast as they
neither
can
can
move
I.
one. And so it's amazing what they do. But it's what's really amazing, Tej, is that almost every teen, and it's about 50 a month, are texting. 50 new people every month. Almost every teen asks the same question within the first 5 minutes. And that is, am I the only one feeling this way? So part of depression, and it's not just for teens, it could have been for seniors too, is isolation and withdrawal. So teens typically withdraw from their friends, from their families, from family events, from so many things that they are part of. They want to do that. And to the point that they've isolated themselves so they don't have any fun anymore. So imagine,
Right.
go ahead.
One question that comes out of it, they are texting so much, but some would argue that social media is also reason for teenagers to get into depression. What is
Well,
your thought on that?
their argument would be correct. So the problem with social media, and it's like this all around the world, is that social media creates a highlight reel of everybody's life.
Right. Yeah.
And so it becomes that everybody is having a better time in life but me. So it reinforces the isolation. It's terrible with that. It just simply reinforces it. And so
So the
when my
administration is thinking of having a ban on social media, right? But I think there's a particular age group that they're talking about.
well, some states, and it's questionable whether it's legal in the United States constitutionally speaking. Anyway, some states like Florida are trying to pass a ban that you have to have parent permission below the age of 16 to use social media. It hasn't passed yet. They're talking about doing it. The United States is talking about TikTok for other reasons, which is national security and personal identifications being stolen and so forth. But for the most part, I think the Facebook, the Instagram, the Snapchat, I think those are here for a long time to come for our teens. And the fact that they're free for every single teen makes it that much more accessible. It is. It's amazing what's going on with that.
So, what would you say is the biggest challenge for you right now in terms of counseling, in terms of resources?
I think, believe it or not, hard is that as as difficult as the teenage period is for teens everywhere in the world, they're moody, they're aggressive, they're withdrawn, they're doing all these things that are natural for teens, having nothing to do with depression. Then you layer depression on that, that makes it even more complicated. The problem, some of this problem can be solved with parents becoming better communicators. And that is a real problem. Most of our writing is to parents to learn how to communicate better and recognize the signals and symptoms of their teen being depressed. Like I said, withdrawal, eating habits are changing, sleeping habits are changing, school grades are going down. They're not talking about the future anymore. They're not excited about the future. So, what a teen does is a teen creates a box. If you think about a box, it has six walls, two sides, top and bottom. And think about that box, that if that box, their world is that box. If it's gray, like most teens, gray and blue, they're okay. But when it starts turning black, they're getting depressed. And so if it gets all black, all six sides become black, then the teen wakes up one day and says, well, yesterday was horrible. Today's going to be even worse. Tomorrow's going to be worse than that. Why bother? No one's going to miss me anyway. And that's where you cross the line from depression to suicide.
Yeah. Elliot, you say the onus is on the parents to talk to the child. But what if the child is coming from a broken family? What if the family is not a unit in the traditional sense?
Well, that's where, and unfortunately, we live in a world where that's way more the reality than the exception now. So think about it. You're a single mom, you're working, you got a job, maybe even two to make ends meet, you're struggling. You come home from work, you try to get some food on a table very quickly. You got to get your kids somewhere on top of that. Then you got to get the kids showered. There's homework. You got to get them to sleep. Now it's 9 or 9:30 at night, and there's been no time for you yet. And that's a real problem out there. So parents themselves have their own share of depression because there's no me anymore in
Exactly.
parenting. But the other
Exactly.
problem is that parents, when I grew up, my dad, and I'm a few years older than you, my dad didn't ask me about all my classes. He didn't want to know who my best friends are. He just said, how are things going? And I would say, fine. And he was okay. And I raised two
Yeah.
boys, and boys shrugged their shoulders. They're cavemen. They answer monosyllabically. And how's your day? Okay. What's going on? Nothing. You know nothing. You know nothing. I can still talk to my 30-year-old son for 20 minutes and know less than I did 20 minutes ago. It's amazing.
Yeah,
So
true, true.
we've got to learn how to ask, which we didn't have to before. We have to learn how to ask better questions. That's the key here, Tej, is learn as a parent, which you are not trained to do, how to ask better questions. And questions of who's your best friend? How are that person doing in your class? Which is your favorite teacher? Why? Which is your least favorite class? Why? Because maybe their least favorite class is chemistry. So they're not only not doing well in chemistry, they've decided that they and their best friend aren't even going to show up to chemistry. So they're just creating a spiral of negativity and failure in there. But we didn't know to ask that question because maybe we could have solved that chemistry issue by saying, you know something? How about if I find somebody that really knows chemistry that can come in here twice a week and help you? And then we can get beyond the depression of chemistry.
So, in all these years of you running this nonprofit, Elliot, do you think that the parents are the ones who need more counseling than the teenagers?
I think parents need a lot of counseling. If you asked me 15 years ago about counseling, I would have said, or maybe 20 years ago, I would have said that's ridiculous and come on, and it's all these stereotypes that I live by also. But I learned that parents really today are very ill equipped to ask the in depth questions because they didn't have to be asked that. That's what I was just saying. We've got to learn to be better at parenting, which means we've got to be better listeners. And we do a lousy job listening. I'll give you a good example. So often at dinner, the kids are there with their cell phones and they're texting their friends. You're maybe calling your child in college or grandma, mama, whatever, during dinner. That's a terrible habit. At dinners, put away all cell phones. No cell phones
Put
allowed
away
at dinners.
phones, yes.
Period. No calling the older sibling, no calling mom. Nobody gets a phone call. It's just in depth, old fashioned conversation where you can ask questions, but be a better listener than that. In the US, we're driving kids back and forth to sports and activities and things like that. Turn off the phone, put away your cell, and talk. Put them in the front seat and talk. And then once a week, Tej, take a walk with your teen, a walk, because our brains are wired to talk while we walk. We're wired to do that. So don't bring your cell phone. Just go for a walk and ask good questions and give your teen an opportunity to answer so you learn something. You learn insight, in depth information, because that insight will help you be intuitive to what's going on in your teen's brain. And that's something that your parents never had to do.
Absolutely, yes. Well, there's Elliot for you talking about how walking is important, how talking is important, and how parents and children need to be sitting together the old fashioned way, talking and communicating. Thank you so much, Elliot, for talking to us. I wish a brighter day, a lot of success, and I'm sure you already have a lot of success because mental health is something that is so, so prevalent today. And organizations like yours really are really making that difference in people's lives.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. That was great.